ist etwas da oben. Und dann irgendwie rechts. Aber wo, weiß ich nicht. Da. Ja, keine schlechte Richtung. Da war so 4 oder 5, die da. So, guck mal da. Und da oben. Perfekt. Er ist vermögend. Löst es einfach.
My name is Julien Atuil. I'm international lawyer at the Human Rights Chamber for Bosnia-Herzegovina. In this Human Rights Tribunal, we're also trying to help the country to and help the population to get more human rights and their right more respected, and there's quite a lot to do in that aspect. I'm sure people are able to do their own law, but since the international community has been there since the beginning, and we put the worm inside the apple, that create this need for the international community, and the worm is growing, and we don't know how to move out of the country without harming that much the apple.
My name is Typhoon Keskin. I'm working here as a freelance music journalist, and I'm also employed as a language teacher for now. Well, firstly, I fell in love with one of the people who live here, but it's Alma, my girlfriend, and secondly, I think it reminded me very much of the place in Turkey that I grew up. Like, it was smaller in Turkey, it was like a village, but everything here is very Turkish in that sense, because it's part of the heritage of this place, the Turkish heritage, And it was the landscape, it was the mountains, it was like, I don't know, the muezzin shouting from the mosque, And it was the same kind of things that I had there. And I think that was sort of reminding me of where I grew up, of my roots. I moved here from Berlin, so that was the place I was living before I came to Sarajevo.
I was not that much used to live abroad before I came here. A little bit, but not that much. And so living outside of Western Europe was some kind of gap at the beginning. And especially I get a different background since I'm Jewish. So that there was confrontation of my background to three others cultures. I had a period when I really tried to make more friends with locals. And after I left a little bit for 1 or 2 months, and I lost the contact with them, and tried to contact them again. But recently I started to become a stupid international or stupid French international, just hanging around with French people because maybe I miss also a little bit the French culture and the possibility to express myself in my language.
Well, I think the problem is most people, what they're stuck with is those pictures from wartime, and those coverage from years ago. And before I came here the first time, of course, I had those pictures in my head too, or somewhere, But on the other hand, it was very natural for me to come here without any inhibitions whatsoever, because I thought, this is a country, yes, they had war, there was a war going on there, but things change after the war. But a lot of people, in my family, for example, when I told them I'm going to Sarajevo, they said, oh my God, are you crazy? I mean, what are you going to do there? Everything is destroyed there. Are there still mines? Those were the first questions that came into people's minds, because they had these things in their head. That was the last thing they remember from this place.
People here are pretty friendly, pretty welcoming. If you don't talk about some issues like politics and war, that's what I've been told, that I should not ask about that. If they want to talk about it, no problem. But I should not be the first thing. So, what have you done during the war, or what happened to you, or also what do you think about this new government? Or I try sometimes. Sometimes it works, but most of the time they just say, "Oh, I'm not interested into that," or I don't want to talk about this. But when you start to be more friendly with them and add more contact, they're starting by themselves to talk about it.
Because there are people who only come here for work from outside, there are all these EU, UN, whatever you name it, and you can see that a lot of them hang together, as foreigners, and they go out and all these things, but they don't mix, with the public crowd, with the people from here, and they are not part of the everyday Sarajevo life, and I find that a pity, I also find that very ignorant, because that's not a way of living in a place and getting to know that place for real. I think it could be a problem, because if you also think back of what happened during war times, and what kind of image the UN, for example, had, the blue helmets, what kind of image they had here, as people who are bystanders and watching people getting killed, I think it's a problem, definitely a problem.
But I'm not sure that all the international community is respecting these basic rules that you should learn before you do something in a country. I mean, you should learn how they live, what their culture before wanted to change them. And I think that there is a problem in some organization or with some people that they haven't understand that that Bosnia is not just a game or a place where you can try some law or apply your national law because you just think, oh, they are cool.
The problem is that people will always talk and speak and think in cliches about each other and judge each other, you know. They will say, you are from the UN, you are from the EU, you know, you're like this, and the others will say, you're from Bosnia, you're like that, you know. And I think that's one of the main problems we have today in our worlds, especially when it comes in terms of cultures and religions.
Naženi varam, neka mi bude haram, draga braća, a drugo morate upisati moje ime, prezime, Calkanov, časnik. I broj žiro računa Đorđe u Savezu, udruženje slijepih škola na Đaču. Hvala kapitalcu, draga braća. Hvala braćo, mila da vam Allah sreće zdravlje.
My name is Anna Vilenica, so I'm 24. I came from Rijeka. This is the harbor in Croatia, and I came because I want to study acting. First time somebody put Sarajevo in my head is one drummer here. His name is Faris, and his father is he's making shoes. He's shoemaker, and then he was telling me, "Oh, come to Sarajevo, come to Sarajevo." I was telling him, "Yeah, come to Sarajevo." Like that's something, you know, doing like this. And then I didn't tell my mother. I tell only my father because my mother would freak out, as she did later. And I didn't have anything when you were talking why people come to Sarajevo and here was war. Because actually my reason was first acting, of course, and the second one why Sarajevo, because I never thought. I always thought about the place where it was war, like, okay, war is now finished and everything is beautiful like it used to be before, you know, because I was very naive at that time.
My name is Casey, from Texas, from San Antonio. I'm a network engineer working in Bosnia. First time I came to Bosnia, I had this kind of funny. I had just got out the military, and I was working in Atlanta as a consultant for computer networks. And out the blue, somebody just called me and was like, "Do you want a job in Bosnia?" And I was like, "Hell no, why?" And then they told me how much money, and I was like, okay. And I was like, basically, when do you want me there? And in 2 weeks, I packed up everything I had in Atlanta, drove it to Texas, dropped it off at my brother's house, and I was in Bosnia.
But when I first entered the city, I was shocked, totally shocked, totally like, wow, what's this? And my parents didn't like it. I don't know. My mother didn't want to speak with me for a few days, and they were in total shock. I think I had a lot of prejudice before about Sarajevo and Bosnia, in general, because this is so hard to say. But Bosnia, at least from our point of view, and like also Macedonia or down there Kosovo and regions like that, were always in our head like regions that I don't know, they're uneducated people live there. You know, how can I a dark places, not dark, but you know, metaphorically dark places. And I think I had a lot of prejudice about Bosnia and Sarajevo in general. I didn't know actually anything about it.
None of us who are here in Sarajevo now knew anything about Sarajevo before we came. We didn't know shit. And anything you did know, it was probably, I wouldn't say a negative reason, but it was probably not a good enough reason for you to come without the money being a factor. So, I mean, everybody know, we are, even the people here, they know we come for the money, no taxes, whatever country you're from. But the people who end up staying, I say, longer than a year are people who they end up really liking Sarajevo. Most people come, and I see them come and go, and like they'll be here, like they'll show up here, like, yeah, I'm gonna stay here a year, 2 years, make some money, I'm gonna go do this. The cat's gone in 3 months.
A lot of beautiful things happened to me here, which didn't ever happen to me anywhere, I think, in the world where I've been. For example, let me tell you one example. We were on our first year and we didn't have money at all. It was, I don't know, the end of the month, and we spent all the money that our parents gave us. And we were going home, and we stopped at one like little market, you know, and we have like 1 mark. And for 1 mark, you can buy here 2 small chocolates. And then we were thinking, oh God, what are we going to buy? Oh, I would like to have something to drink. I would like something sweet and something salty. And what will and then we were staying like this. And then from dark, one guy came, you know, and he said, okay, girls, what would you like? Like, so, well, no, nothing. Like, no, thank you, nothing. Oh God, nothing, thank you. And then this guy bought for him a cigarettes for, I don't know, 20 marks, and he said to the sailor, hey, okay, keep the change and let the girls buy something for 18 marks, and he just went away. And we were like, oh Jesus, angel game. Because I'm a real example how somebody who came with idea, I won't be part of this, started to be part of it, but just naturally somehow. And I think it's stupid if you live here not to feel part, not to give yourself a chance to be part of all of this, really, of the town. And I'm very proud now. I consider myself to be a Bosnian actress. Let them pardon me if they don't do so, but really I do.
I mean, the people here are so friendly. I mean, they cool, they kind, they chill. But they so fucking frustrating sometimes, you know? Like driving. And driving, everything comes back to driving. If, I mean, you want to see somebody get mad, just mention driving. You'll see people just get aggravated. I think the difference in Sarajevo and other countries is all down to opportunity and politics. Pretty much. That's about it.
Evo, znate šta, danas je kod jako.
My name is Paul Lowe, I'm a photographer and I live in Sarajevo. I came to Bosnia in 1992 to cover the war, and it was at that point just another story. The whole experience of covering the events here and then, you know, becoming part of the events almost in a sense, and being married to a Bosnian, definitely has made me much more aware of of how journalists are often distanced from the story, and it's very hard to understand as an outsider. You know, yesterday I went to Srebrenica to photograph, and there are points when you can't be a journalist anymore because it's, you know, it becomes much more much closer to your own heart, and you kind of have to put your cameras down and stop reporting and just sort of be part of the experience. And that's happened to me several times on different. Happened to me in Kosovo when I was photographing the refugees coming from Kosovo, because every family that I saw, you know, could have been my wife's family or my friend's family during the war here if things had gone differently. If Sarajevo, the capital city, had fallen to the Serbs, it would have been, you know, Srebrenica multiplied by 100. And so on that story, for example, you know, most of the time I was just almost in tears trying to, you know, help people and talk to people, and just to sort of, I almost couldn't function anymore as a journalist. Because I think a lot of journalists, unfortunately, apply the same sort of tool set, as it were, the same mental tool set to every story. They go to the next, you know, whatever it is, war, disaster, conflict, flood, refugee camp, or whatever.
My name is Salima, and I'm studying interior architecture in Brussels.
I'm Nela. I'm from Brussels. I'm 22 years old, and we came here to Sarajevo by bus.
I didn't know what to expect, because our teacher talked to us about the war, and we saw a movie about the war in the bus, so we were really, you know,
Shocked.
a little bit shocked
Yes.
and from all the images, and we thought, what is going to be there, you know, what's going to happen there, and how will the people be?
You know, 8 years ago, Bosnia was the absolute epicenter of the world's attention, and every single TV camera in the world was focused on the streets outside where we're sitting now. And now, you know, 8 years on, nobody really cares at all. Nobody's interested. And yet, the people of Bosnia, like the people of Somalia or Rwanda or now Afghanistan, and probably like the people of Iraq are going to be in another, you know, 6 months or a year's time, still have to get on with living their lives, dealing with the aftermath of these conflicts, dealing with the problems that's thrown up, dealing with the suffering and the emotion and the grief and so on. And so the media is a very peculiar beast in that its attention span, it's like a goldfish. It weakens our understanding of the world because the journalistic profession, with some obviously notable exceptions, doesn't really have the time to go out and report the stories. It's simply, you know, let's go live to our, you know, our reporter in wherever, standing on a hotel rooftop, you know, who because he's stuck at the hotel because he's got to feed every half an hour, isn't physically able to leave the hotel to go and do any reporting.
Eventually, it scared me. There was something in me that said, "Oh, Sarajevo, there was a war. It's unsafe there. But if you go with a group where you're comfortable in, and everybody is supporting each other, and then it's easier." That's why I choose this to do this with school, because I think that in my normal life I wouldn't do this. I wouldn't come here on my own.
I think, you know, my experience here was quite a large part in that, although other experiences in other situations in Africa and so on made me realise that these aren't, you know, actors in a movie. These are all real people, and they are really suffering, and they are really losing their loved ones, and it's very easy as a journalist because, you know, you've always got a plane ticket home, you know, by and large. You know, there obviously are enormous risks, but on the other hand, you've chosen to take those risks, unlike most of the people in the stories that you're covering who have no choice whatsoever in what's happening to them.
And it's very frightening, actually. All the buildings are damaged, but some of them are recovered, but most of them are still with bullet holes, and to see that 7 years later it's still there. But I'm afraid to talk about the war. I want to know what they think about it and how they feel about it, but it's a difficult subject. I understand a little bit of it, but I don't know how it could happen in the 90s
At the beginning, everybody kind of couldn't quite believe what was happening and sort of, didn't know what was going on, so they kind of were wandering around, thinking, oh my God, is this really happening? And then for a while, I think people kind of hid in the shelters and sort of hunkered down and tried to think it was going to be over quite soon and just thought, well, let's just stay safe. But then as it dragged on, I think people thought, well, hang on a minute, do we want to live like rats in a cellar? Do we want to live like animals, or do we want to live like human beings? And it was better to live like a human being and risk being killed than it was to live like an animal in a sewer and refuse to come out to see the light. So people did, as I say, come out and went to concerts and went to films and went to theatre performances and came to art openings and the most amazing parties. New Year in Sarajevo was incredible. Every year people really, there was such an energy. And as I said, I think in many ways that was one of the unique things about the war here. I mean, certainly for me, the unique thing about the war here was that it was a modern, sophisticated, very Western city, taken back into the Middle Ages, into the medieval period, where people had to learn all over again how to grow food, how to live without electricity, without water, without gas.
When you walk outside Sarajevo and you see all the cemeteries and you see that they're just full of people and there's not enough room, and they put the people in the parks and in all the spare spaces just to bury them. And now it feels just good to see that there is actually life after it. Even though you really have to look very good to see the damage that the war has done. I mean, in the faces of people. When you see old people, sometimes I've seen a guy he had a big scar on his face and it looked like a bullet.
You can translate an experience, you can try to sort of hint at what it's like, but you can never really actually recapture what that was. If you actually physically experienced it, you don't need to be told what it was like. You know what it was like. You don't need to have some reminder, whether it's a film or a book or something. And if you haven't, I think for people who weren't here during the war, they're all desperately trying to understand what it was like. So it's a kind of familiar place, it's accessible, and yet it has this very powerful sort of backstory, as it were. So I think people are attracted to come here, to work or to live or to study or whatever, because it has a sort of the name has a real resonance. I mean, Sarajevo is obviously has a lot of historical resonance as well as contemporary resonance. And I think the people who are attracted to come here are attracted partly by that. It's kind of, I think a lot of people who come to live and work here, who weren't here during the war, who don't have that connection, are coming because it is romantic. It is kind of, oh, let's go and live in a city that had a war, let's go and experience it. I mean, a few people have said to me, oh, I'm kind of glad I'm here now because, I can still see what it might have been like, because you can still see some bullet holes in the wall or whatever, which is, slightly pathetic in a way.
I think that people are trying just to live on and just maybe not forget, but you can't be stuck in one time. There has been war, but I think you have to go over it somehow, because or else you don't live anymore.
Now I come here and the people are smiling and the weather is beautiful, and it's just the opposite than I thought.
¿Puedes empezar, por favor?
Da pričam nešto. Šta?
Comenzar a cantar?
A kantar!
Sí.
Ec, pec, pec, ti si mali zec, a ja mala vjeverica, ec, pec, pec.
It's short song. Can you just we get tired.
Pliva patka preko Savi, nosi pismo navrh glave. U tom pismu piše, ne volim te više.